Today's an interesting sutta we're going to look into. For me, it's I think one of the most well-explained meditation instructions at length that was given to Rāhula, the Buddha's son. And I think this sutta is particularly relevant to us meditators because it really gives a beautiful idea of the whole progress, the whole of the path, which we call bhavana. And bhavana is a term that is translated as meditation, but it also means mostly mental development, wholesome mental development. And so bhavana is not just one kind of meditation, it's a way of cultivating the mind and our actions, speech, and mind. And well, I think we will get started. And this is a translation of mine. And the Buddha's son here, Rāhula, is quite young. Is one of the youngest members of the Sangha at this time. The commentaries say that he was 18, and so the little story goes that Rāhula and the Buddha go to Savatthi for alms in the morning, and Rāhula is, so that we can understand the context here, he is roughly 18, he is at the end of his teenage, and so just so you can understand his mental process at this point in this sutta. And so he's a quite young member of the Sangha, and he also, his father is the Buddha, which is quite an interesting scenario also to keep in mind. And so they say, in the morning they dressed up, took their bowl and robes, and entered Savatthi for alms, and the Venerable Rāhula did the same, following on the Awakened One closely. The Awakened One looked back and said, Rāhula, whatever shapes exist, physical shapes or forms, whether past, present, or future, for oneself or for others, gross or fine, coarse or sublime, far or near, all physical shapes should be seen as they actually are with wise discernment. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. Here we can pause a little bit and wonder, why would the Buddha just out of nowhere, out of the blue, just turn around and say that to Rāhula? And the thing is, well, once again, that's found in the commentaries, but it explains a little bit about the context where Rāhula was actually walking behind the Buddha, and he thought, wow, the Buddha is my father. And he was looking at the physical form, the physical shape of the Buddha, and he was a beautiful man and with a strong presence, a beautiful presence, and a very pleasing demeanor. And so as they were walking around, Rāhula thought for himself, the Buddha is my father, and he has all of these beautiful qualities, his physical, mostly his physical representation. And he saw how he also had the same qualities. He looked a bit like his father. And I mean, the commentary goes a little bit further into explaining all this, but I think it's important for us to keep that in mind, that as a young 18-year-old, Rāhula is, probably having hormones shooting through the roof, and being just at the age where you discover the world, basically. And I think that's really funny, actually, because he's the Buddha's son, so it's a very interesting position to be, I think, for a teenager who's just learning to explore the world a little bit, but then the Buddha is your father, and then the Buddha turns around and So the Buddha obviously knew what Rahula was thinking. And so he turned around and he gave this advice to Rahula, because he could see that, and I feel like it's probably not just there, but probably in his behavior in the past, he probably saw that this was a recurring theme for him that was arising, is being very attached or being very influenced by the physical world, the physical representation, bodies. And so that is why the Buddha is turning around and trying to help Rahula understand a little bit more. And so Rahula answers, "Only physical shapes, Master, only physical shapes, Blessed One." The Buddha replied, "Physical shapes, Rahula, as well as felt experiences, perceptions, mental activities, and consciousness." And so obviously these are the five aggregates. Very often when this sutta is explained, a lot of the attention goes around the five aggregates. Personally, my focus on this discourse will be more on the path of meditation, so I will briefly touch upon those, but these are the five constituents that we call ourselves. And so whenever we attach a sense of personality or identity to us, we are clinging to either one of these aspects. Somehow I have a feeling that Rahula is not the first time he hears that, if his father is the Buddha. So I have to be honest, I don't think it's, when he asks the only physical shapes, Bhante, only physical forms, he's probably expecting to hear the rest. That's what I think. But the Buddha, now that he knew what Rahula was thinking, that he was just kind of very attached to that physical representation of his father and himself, kind of wanted to put more emphasis on that. And so this is how this whole sutta kind of comes into being, is because of that attachment of Rahula, because he's so young. And the Buddha is trying to explain to him how to not get so involved and distracted in external representations in the external world, not being so affected. And so being told this, Rahula thought, who could ever go for alms on a day like this after being so advised by the teacher? So I think he was probably feeling a little bit of a tinge of, a little bite on his ego at this point, because he was advised by his father in a pretty concrete way. And being a teenager, I don't know if you remember, but emotions can go quick into bloom. So I'm sure that he was feeling a little bit kind of on edge at this point. And so he thought, maybe I'll just go. That's how I see it. That's how I interpret this. And he went to the foot of a tree, sat down cross-legged with his body erect, and settled into presence of mind. Now this is a very classical sequence here, and I want to just briefly underline that this is the place where this infamous word Parimukhaṃ comes into being, comes into place. That is attributed to putting awareness on the nostrils or something like that. Where in the Ānāpānāsati, this is how people would interpret. It says Parimukhaṃ, like establishing mindfulness at the nostrils. But I want to just take this sutta as a reference because it happens in many other suttas, and that's just a sequence that is used when any monk or nun will go meditate somewhere, and that's the first thing that they do. But in reality, they just take the time and settle into presence or place presence of mind or mindfulness as their kind of priority at the moment. They're just making that the emphasis, not doing anything else, just sitting and meditating. Basically, it's another word. It's just another sequence to explain that they're just going to meditate. It has nothing to do with nostrils. It has nothing to do with... and it comes back in many different places in the teachings that have nothing to do with Ānāpānāsati. It's just the beginning of any kind of meditation. So I just thought I would take the opportunity. And then the Venerable Sāriputta came to Rāhula. And then he said, cultivate meditation using the breath as a reminder. So mindfulness of breathing, in other words. When it is trained and cultivated, it is highly fruitful and greatly beneficial. And so the Venerable Sāriputta was actually Rāhula's preceptor and teacher. The Buddha asked Sāriputta to ordain Rāhula when he was 7, when they went to Kapilavatthu. And so Venerable Sāriputta was the teacher, Rāhula's real teacher and preceptor. Rāhula was probably just thinking he was going to think about what the Buddha said and meditate on that as an insight practice. And but now Venerable Sāriputta comes and says, you should practice mindfulness of breathing, cultivating meditation using the breath as a reminder, as I like to translate it. My feeling is that at this point Rāhula doesn't even know the instructions, because he will receive them in this sutta. And so this is another very interesting aspect of this teaching. Then, when the evening came around, the Venerable Rāhula came out of seclusion, went to the Awakened One and paid respects, and asks, Bhante, how is awareness cultivated using the breath as a reminder? How does one train in it so it may be highly fruitful and beneficial? Now here, because Rāhula, his teacher Sāriputta, told him to practice Ānāpānāsati, and he probably just didn't know how at this point, he decided to go and ask the Buddha himself for advice. And personally, this is where I really like, this is where the sutta turns around, and the Buddha in fact doesn't start with Ānāpānāsati, which is a very common thing nowadays. Everybody kind of starts with Ānāpānāsati, but the Buddha actually goes into a pretty long explanation of what kind of development should be done before one gets to mindfulness of breathing. And I like this sequence particularly because it really displays again that this whole practice is not just about one method, it's about cultivating many different qualities that lead gradually towards liberation. The Buddha says, Rāhula, whatever one considers as hard or solid within oneself, as being a part of oneself, like the hair on their head, the hair on their body, nails, teeth, skin, muscles, tendons, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, the heart, the liver, the pleura, the spleen, the lungs, the intestines, the colon, and everything inside, or any other thing one considers hard or solid within oneself as being part of oneself. That is called the earth element inside oneself. Now we are beginning the explanation where the Buddha will, if you're familiar a little bit with the 5 aggregates of clinging, the first one, that is rupa, or form, or physical shape, the Buddha said that this rupa is only the 4 great elements. in reality. And so this is what the Buddha will concentrate on for the next little while, because he knows that Rahula is very engaged and influenced by the senses and forms and all the things of the world. And so he goes into a full breakdown of really what is this body, or what is this form, and how you should see it. And so everything that is hard within us, and everything that has some kind of a resistance, that has a solidity to it, this is part of the earth element, nothing more. So, and I like that we also know this from science now too, and all the minerals and the vitamins that constitute our bodies. It's true, it's the earth element. This came from the earth, and it is within us in a specific form at the moment, but when this form goes away, it goes back to the earth. And this really is the earth element. And so there is the earth element inside and the earth element outside. Both are nothing but the earth element. And so I also like this bridge where we really connect that, yes, we can acknowledge that we see these elements within us, the earth, for example, and that's ajatang. Ajatang is for oneself, or within oneself, adi attang. And I also like this word because ajatang and pachatang, which is outside, because the word attang, atta, is there. So the Buddha actually speaks, he uses that word skillfully to explain. So a lot of the times people say, well, doesn't the Buddha say that there's no self? Well, that's true. But we also have to be able to communicate. And so there are certain ways of speech that the Buddha uses. And so ajatang for oneself, and pachatang is outside of oneself, to the outside world. And these two, even if it has a bit of a different form, it is still the earth element. There is nothing there that is really us. And one should think of it in this way: this is not me, there is no I in this. This is not myself. This is how it is to be seen with proper discernment. Seeing in this manner, with proper discernment, one lets go of the earth element. One's mind does not cling to the earth element. And so with wisdom, we can just use the wisdom of the Buddha to really tap into this calming and soothing effect that it has. Why would I become agitated when I see that, yes, the earth is the earth, whether it's within me or outside? It's just the earth element. Why am I getting upset? Why am I taking it personal? What is the water element? There is the water element inside, and there is the water element outside. What is the water element inside? Whatever one considers fluid or watery within oneself as being a part of oneself, like bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, and any other thing which one considers fluid or watery within oneself as being part of oneself. That is called the water element inside oneself. So whether it is the water element within or the water element outside, both are nothing but the water element. And one should think of it in this way: this is not me, there is no I in this, and this is not myself. This is how it is to be seen with proper discernment. Seeing in this manner with wise discernment, one lets go of the water element. One's mind does not cling to the water element. And so deepening into each of the elements and experiencing the release that is possible just through insight, just through reflection upon these qualities. And what is the fire element? There is the fire element inside and the fire element outside. What is the fire element inside? Whatever one considers burning or fiery within oneself as being a part of oneself, like that which creates heat, that which is broken down, that which is consumed, that which is eaten and digested, and any other thing one considers burning or fiery within oneself as being a part of oneself. This is called the fire element inside oneself. So whether it is the fire element within or the fire element outside, both are nothing but the fire element. And one should think of it in this way: this is not me, there is no I in this, this is not myself. This is how it is to be seen with proper discernment. Seeing in this manner, with wise discernment, one lets go of the fire element. One's mind does not hold to the fire element. And so anything that is heat in the body, that is Agni, everything that is fire in those days and in Ayurveda is related to the digestive system. And so anything that breaks down and digests and produces heat and energy. So these are all processes, combustion, and when we really truly look into the process of it, it's all very interesting and seems to be quite out of our reach in terms of control, or in terms of there's certain things we can do, but if I eat food and say don't produce any heat, it's not going to work. Because we're also in Sri Lanka and it's warm. And so what is the air element? There is the air element inside and the air element outside. What is the air element inside? Whatever one considers airy or windy within oneself as being a part of oneself, like upward going winds, downward going winds, wind in the belly, wind in the intestine, and air. In Pali, air and wind is Vayu, which is kind of the same. So wind that flows through the body, breathing in and breathing out. And all of these elements, I don't know if you can notice it already, but just talking about it, hearing about it, it helps calm down the mind. I can feel it even just reading it. So It's very impersonal. Why would I react to this and that? These are just things that are happening, and it's okay. Everything is fine. The elements are just the elements. We don't need to make them personal. It's not personal, in fact. So that is called the wind element inside oneself. So whether it is the wind element within or the wind element outside, both are nothing but the wind element. And one should think of it in this way: this is not me. There is no I in this. This is not myself. Seeing in this manner with wise discernment, one lets go of the fire element. One's mind does not hold on to the fire element. See, when we start to break these apart, break our experience apart in terms of the elements, it really helps us also see clearly what is happening here, what are the energies and the forces at play. And it really creates a perspective shift where we take this body so personally, and everything that happens to us and to this body in particular. But when we start to break it down into the elements, we start to see that actually it's not as personal as I think, and the effect on the mind is very calming and soothing. And so this is the kind of calm that we can experience through insight also. Anagarika Sarah and I have been talking about this a bit lately, how the Buddha taught so many ways to develop perspectives that actually truly calm the mind. In retreat, for example, the meditation is the meditation, but there are some key principles and insights that are often given at the talks in the evening and also on personal interviews. And if those were not there, then the meditation just wouldn't work or proceed in the right direction. And so these retreats are kind of, they are organized in a very specific way so that all these, as meditators practice more and more, then certain key understandings are given, and then that makes the meditation much, much deeper. And that's why we call it, it's both samatha and vipassana together. So it's not just one tranquilizing, just anything that comes up, just calming it and smiling. It's also understanding things in the proper way. Also in the forgiveness meditation. But the elements is one of these really beautiful teachings that have that effect on the mind, where the mind really calms down and stops being agitated. What is the space element? There is the space element inside and the space element outside. What is the space element inside? Whatever one considers as space or spatial within oneself, as being part of oneself, like the cavity of the ears, the cavity of the nose, the aperture of the mouth, where what is drunk, chewed, eaten, and tasted gets swallowed, where it remains and where it comes out of the lower end, and any other thing one considers as space or spatial within oneself as being part of oneself, like air, that which is airy, an opening, or anything that pertains to an open cleft. This is called the space element inside oneself. So whether it is the space element within or the space element outside, both are nothing but the space element. And one should think of it in this way: this is not me. There is no I in this, and this is not myself. This is how it is to be seen with proper discernment. Seeing in this manner, with wise discernment, one lets go of the space element. One's mind does not hold to the space element. Okay, so this is the section on the explanation, the section on discernment, paññā, that the Buddha gives as a preliminary. And if you read the suttas a bit, you'll notice that the Buddha really often starts by giving right view or wise understanding, wise perspective. Because very often there needs to be just a few shifts in perspective for meditation to go a lot deeper and for people to understand the way of practice properly. Now that the Buddha has explained the four elements and kind of how to see them, how to kind of develop that mind, that mentality, that kind of meditation, then he starts giving Rāhula, which is the more kind of active meditative part of the teaching, he starts giving him the meditation instructions. And this is where we find a very interesting development or sequence that the Buddha offers in terms of wholesome mental development. And so a whole kind of path of training from the wisdom that we just heard, and then now developing further into this meditation. And so he begins with saying, Rāhula, cultivate meditation like the earth. Cultivating meditation like the earth, desirable and undesirable sensory contacts that arise will not overrun your mind and persist. Just as people throw desirable things and undesirable things on the earth, like excrements, urine, spit, pus, and blood, the earth is not disgusted, vexed, or repulsed. So the earth is not taking it personal. It is only seeing it for what it is, a pleasant or an unpleasant sensation. and not adding on to it, not adding to the experience, practicing like the element. And for me, this is why I like meditating outside, and for me the practice has always been very close to nature, and I find this particular way of meditating even better when I'm outside in, for example, in the big boulders or by the river or just on the mountain, and really kind of doing exactly what is said here. meditating like the earth. And you can feel it when you're meditating among like these rocks or these boulders, and you can feel how unshaken they are. They're not judging you being there or whatever is happening. Oh, it's raining, or oh, it's sunny, or it's hot, or whatever is happening. These boulders are the rocks are very impartial. They are very equanimous. They're not moving, they're not phased. And personally, I find it extremely healing and also calming, very calming. And I see it as like the four great elements is like wise friendship, kalyana mitta. What you surround yourself, who you surround yourself, is actually, you're soaking it in. And so if you surround yourself with these elements and nature, it makes an impression inside of you, and it actually really calms you down. There's not many places better than nature where to meditate, so except when there's a lot of mosquitoes, but that's but that's not too bad here. Rāhula, cultivate meditation like the earth, like the water. Cultivating meditation like water. Desirable and undesirable sensory contact that arise will not overrun your mind and persist. Just as people throw desirable things and undesirable things in water, like excrement, urine, spit, pus, blood, all the worst nasty things. Water is not disgusted, vexed, or repulsed. And so same thing for the water. These elements are very neutral. And I was reading that earlier, and I remembered one of my favorite things when I was a kid was to go watch the waves or the boats, but the waves are mainly by the sea, and how the waves are just crashing into the boulders and kind of withdrawing, and it's that same kind of breathing movement almost every time, like exhaling and then inhaling of the ocean. And it's just looking at it is, for one thing, is very calming, but it's also so beautiful how these elements are just interacting together, but they're not taking themselves personal. They don't have a personality. Well, in some countries they do, but we're not going to go there. But yeah, just contemplating on these elements and contemplating, just seeing the waves kind of colliding with the rocks, and none of them gets upset. Isn't that a beautiful thing? The water doesn't get upset because the rock is in the way, or the rock isn't upset because it's getting tossed around by the water. It's just happening, and it's just these forces that are at play. And I think the Buddha is putting a little bit of emphasis here on like throwing desirable things and undesirable things. Again, this is pointing at Rāhula's propensity right now of being a teenager and, being kind of a bit, probably scatter-minded a little bit, just trying to find pleasure and all these things, or I don't know, maybe running after butterflies. And I mean, it's the Buddha story, so it has to be kind of wholesome. And then he says, Rāhula, cultivate meditation like fire. cultivating meditation like fire, desirable and undesirable sensory contacts that arise will not overrun your mind and persist, just as people throw desirable things and undesirable things in fire. Fire is not disgusted, vexed, or repulsed. Rāhula, cultivate meditation like air. Cultivating meditation like air, desirable and undesirable sensory contacts that arise will not overrun your mind and persist, just as people throw desirable things and undesirable things in the air. Air is not disgusted, vexed, or repulsed. Rāhula, cultivate meditation like space. Cultivating meditation like space, desirable and undesirable sensory contacts that arise will not overrun your mind and persist. Just as space is not supported and is not resting anywhere upon anything, cultivate meditation like space. And that's a very beautiful metaphor here. Cultivating meditation like the air and space, and soaking in that spaciousness. We're not there anymore. Oh, thank you. We're not there anymore, but where we were at the other monastery, there was a really nice viewpoint where I had a nice place to meditate, and very vast and open, and very ideal for soaking in that air element and that spaciousness, it making that impression in the mind of the opposite of being so agitated in our minds is that kind of feeling where the mind is cluttered and there's so many things that we're thinking. Well, the air is just the opposite, is completely open, and it's that spaciousness. And again, the air is just an element, and space is an element, and it is not affected. And so all of these things is just to soak in within us and to remember what we are made of, and this will bring the mind into a very naturally meditative state of equanimity, of calm, of not taking things that are happening so personal towards ourselves, and slip into a more of a meditative practice which follows also. And so this is a beautiful kind of a base or a ground for us to get started in meditation. Just understand, because here we are kind of breaking down maybe a little bit of pride, or maybe a little bit of that sense of being very involved in things, and it gives that perspective shift where all of these hindrances, when they arise based on taking things personal. And so as we deepen our understanding into this, when we try to meditate and there's a hindrance arising, for example, there's a really strong longing for ice cream. Well, someone is identifying with it, and we are identifying with it and thinking, I would really love a big bowl of ice cream right now. And this is just an example. But at the base, there is that taking personal. There is that I want this, and for us to want something, there needs to be an I behind it. And so, and same thing for anger, for example. If we sit down and become very agitated, restless, anxious, angry, thinking about maybe somebody said something earlier, or whatever the case may be, then we are feeding the stories within our minds, and we're associating with I taking it personal, and this happened to me, he said that or she said that to me, and I should have replied this, I should have done this. Well, I has to be there for all of these things to arise. And what the Buddha is starting with here is just bringing down this I, this very sense of I, so that the mind can cool down a little bit and be in a better place to start meditation. The Buddha is starting with putting a spotlight on this understanding of taking everything personal is the beginning of all those hindrances. And when we actually erode that sense of strong personality and like taking things personal, then all of these hindrances actually are quite diminished a lot, and the mind is in a very good place to start meditating. And so from the ground of that wisdom, then we can start bhavana, we can start cultivating. Then Rāhula, cultivate meditation on boundless love. Cultivating boundless love, aversion will wear away. And this is very, very beautiful and amazing. I just want to remind that Rāhula asked for the instructions on Ānāpānāsati, and he is now being given a full discourse on how to start meditation and how to prepare the mind for meditation. And Ānāpānāsati is a great practice. It's a beautiful practice, and I actually really love that whole sequence. But it has a place in the teaching, and I believe that the place for it is more after all of these things have been seen and understood and developed. Then Ānāpānāsati is kind of like the cherry on top, or the kind of the all around, the final kind of practice that we can start. But before we get there, there is a whole path that is very beautiful, and that is about cultivating many different kinds of very wholesome qualities of the mind and the heart, which are not to be neglected. And so, starting with boundless love or metta bhavana, and then he says, Rāhula, cultivate meditation on boundless compassion. Cultivating boundless compassion, retaliation will wear away. And so that, of course, these are not the only thing that it's going to do. For example, metta will not only wear away aversion and things like that. It works in many different ways, but these mental skills or mental qualities will change the heart and the mind in their perspectives and in their ways of behaving towards much greater wholesomeness. Then Rāhula, cultivate meditation on boundless joy. Cultivating boundless joy, discontent will wear away. And so when we learn to rejoice in other people's merits or joy or successes, we'll start to notice that discontent is not very present anymore. It's just, we just rejoice in the good things that happen around. And whenever somebody gains something, it's not a cause for us to be sad, oh, I didn't get it. No, it's actually, it's a training to practice, wow, it's so good. Like, it's great that they were able to do this or achieve this. That's so beautiful. I'm happy for them. Then the mind turns into a very different mindset, and it sounds minor, but I think it's quite powerful to rejoice with other people's success, and that also really breaks the ego too. It's really kind of this shift from I didn't win. No, but they did, and that's great, it's fine. Like, everybody is happy. And for yourself, it's a big shift. Like, I remember the time when it happened for me, and it's a huge shift in your life, because you go from a perspective of like needing and wanting things for yourself to like just being happy for people and for whatever it is. And so you're just storing up all that goodness by celebrating, by being happy, rejoicing, and sharing that joy. Okay, I'll stop here because then Rahula, cultivate meditation on boundless calm. Cultivating boundless calm, agitation will wear away. And now we're going more into deeper meditation practice. When we can see when we develop these qualities, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, then the mind becomes very, very wholesome. And then the next step is, based on all of these beautiful qualities, to cultivate deeper calm of the mind. And so we can cultivate radiant calm. Then Rahula, cultivate meditation on disadvantages. And sometimes this is translated as foulness of the body or repulsiveness, but like we were just discussing the other day, personally I like disadvantages because it works in more than just the physical aspect. It's for everything. You can actually, if there's any kind of attachment that we have, we can train to see the disadvantage in it for us. Let's say that I was really attached to going to the city, for example, which I'm not. But and then I could train myself to think, well, there's going to be a lot of traffic, and then and then there's going to be a lot of noise, and there's going to be a lot of delays, and then I think, well, because of all these disadvantages, it's easy when I see the disadvantages for me to like give it up. To say, no, that's okay, I'll wait another week. That's a very bad example. But we can do that with everything. And so the word like, foulness or like asubha or repulsiveness, it works, it's true, but it's more universal to use. And you were saying, what were you saying? Drawbacks, yeah. Drawbacks, disadvantages. Cultivating meditation on disadvantages, longing will wear away. And so when we have these kind of strong attachments here and there and there and there, then we can slowly work on them, just seeing them for what they really are. Seeing, well, maybe I could see like the disadvantage in it, and once we see it, it's actually easy to let go, and we really can change deeply after that. Then Rahula, cultivate meditation on the transitory nature of all experience. Cultivating meditation on the transitory nature of all experience, the conceit I am will fall off. And so this is quite further on the path. There's other teachings to Rahula where he actually breaks through to full awakening, that the Buddha gave a discourse on this topic. But this is also something that I like to point out, is that this is all to be cultivated, and this is all a mental training. And so there is this sequence, and it happens in that sequence too, but it is also whenever it is needed, we develop this or that and that and that. So whatever is needed, this is like a toolkit, a meditation toolkit. Then Rahula, cultivate meditation following the breath as a reminder. And so when you've done all of this, when you've practiced all of these things, you've settled the mind and you've really established a wholesome base to work from without trying to get somewhere too fast. Or this is the process. And we talk a lot about big meditation attainments and things like that, but really, like we were talking, I was saying the other day, for me, in the end, it's about how are these people behaving in real life? Are they really loving and kind people? Are they really calm people? Are they compassionate? Meditation is meditation, whatever kind of meditation we're practicing. But in the end, the real spiritual goal is these qualities that we're supposed to develop. This is really where to look for, and that's why I love this sutta, because it talks about these qualities, and this is what needs to be developed. And so the way that we can really know what to aim for in meditation is actually, are we more loving and kind in our lives? Are we more compassionate? Do we rejoice in other people's success? Can we remain balanced when a very strong situation is arising? So these are the markers to see if we're really practicing properly. That's what I think. Then Rāhula, cultivate meditation following the breath as a reminder. When it is well trained and cultivated, this meditation using the breath as a reminder is highly fruitful and beneficial. How? Here, Rāhula, someone goes to the forest at the root of a tree in an empty cabin, sitting down with legs folded and body upright, and settles into presence of mind. One breathes in with presence of mind, one breathes out with presence of mind. One is aware of a long breath as a long breath while breathing in and while breathing out. One is aware of a short breath as a short breath while breathing in and breathing out. Now, I'm not going to do a big breakdown of Ānāpānāsati this time, because we're at the end of our session, and it's not the goal actually of this talk. The goal of this talk is to give that beautiful overview without getting stuck too long on any of the particular principles of it, because this is the sutta that I use to pretty much base my whole practice and teachings on. What I practice and what I teach is based exactly on this whole sutta, where we take into consideration this whole path of mental development. And each of them are very important and beautiful and have to be cultivated. And Ānāpānāsati is also a beautiful practice, and it comes like the cherry on top of the cake. It comes at the end, when everything has been cultivated and done well. Then we can practice this meditation based on all the wholesome states that we've developed, which is where it's meant to be, I believe, where it's meant to be developed. And then one trains to experience the whole body while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to calm the tension in the body while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to experience joy while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to experience happiness while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to experience the movements of the mind while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to calm the movements of the mind while breathing in, while breathing out. One trains to experience the mind while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to uplift the mind with joy while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to gather the mind while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to untangle the mind while breathing in and breathing out. And for those of you who know a little bit our practice, this is exactly what we're doing. We're not putting attention on the breath per se, but we are developing each of these steps exactly. That's pretty much what we're doing. So this is all what we're doing. And then the last sequence, which is a little bit further on the path. One trains to see constant change or impermanence. while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to see calming down while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to see the end of awareness while breathing in and breathing out. One trains to see breaking free, or to experience breaking free while breathing in and breathing out. This is how to cultivate meditation following the breath as a reminder. So it is highly fruitful and beneficial. When the meditation using the breath as a reminder is cultivated and trained in such a way, one is even aware of one's final breaths as they cease, and one passes away undiluted. So spoke the awakened one. Glad at heart, the Venerable Rāhula was gladdened by his words. And so this is this beautiful training in its length and in its full splendor, I think. The reason why I wanted to start with this particular sutta was that this is the base of my own practice and the base of what I teach. And unfortunately, I never really gave this talk, and on retreat there's already a sequence that I use which is very efficient, or that serves a specific purpose, and it's not really worth it for me to explain where that whole teaching comes from, but it's very helpful for people to know that this is where it comes from. Rāhula was a very young member of the Sangha at this point, and he was beginning his training. And I think this is a beautiful reflection of what the Buddha taught for people who were beginning the training from scratch, from zero, and giving this very beautiful and complete explanation of, yeah, you might want to start with mindfulness of breathing, and that's beautiful, that's great, but there are other things that are to be cultivated, and these things are very important. And even if Rāhula was asking for a specific teaching, the Buddha gave him the proper sequence to understand how to practice before you get there. I don't know if everybody had heard this before or not, but I hope this helps a little bit understanding where our teaching is coming from. Maybe have a little bit more faith and this is actually based somewhere in the suttas, and there's a reference for it, and that's where it comes from. And the next few talks will be suttas like that I cannot, unfortunately, I don't really have time to explain on retreat, but that are very important and foundational to our teachings and practice, and so that we can better understand the source of these teachings and how to really practice it. And maybe sometimes, on retreat, it's not a lot of time, so we have 10 days together, and then we have to part ways, and there's still a lot of material that could be talked about. I hope this opened up some doors, or renewed some understandings that were already there. And everybody have a great month, and thank you for coming. And we'll be in touch. Some of you will be in touch. Take care.